Start with the elephant in the room.
I think we have to start with what happened on the slopes in Colorado. Chase Elliott just being out of action this early in the season. A lot of people don't know what to think about it.
Now, tell everyone in case they hadn't heard what happened with Chase Elliott.
So he fractured his left tibia, the large shin bone, if you will, and it looks like he's going to be missing a few months of action. And for the time being, Josh Berry filled in Las Vegas. It looks like it's going to be the driver in the substitute role this week at Phoenix. Lot to talk about there, but the impact that not having Chase in the mix every week, he's the biggest driver in the sport, and not having him around is going to be just lackluster. I'm looking for having that competition every week from the elite, and having Josh Berry finish 29th. That hurts, having such a dramatic impact that Hendrick had and Chase Elliott not being there. It's a bummer, but he was doing something I don't know if I'd do in the middle of the season.
Yeah, well, let's back up a little bit. So the news broke Friday, shortly before the truck race. Initially, snowmobile, which I was like, what the heck is this guy doing on a snowmobile? And then you kind of pointed out, oh, I think I might actually want him. I preferred him being on a snowmobile. Doesn't really matter. Either way, broken leg. There were obviously not a lot of reports on Friday, and then we kind of got news. It was either late Friday or on Saturday. He had 3-hour-long surgery. That's a long surgery. To me, that indicates that it's not just a simple little fracture where he's out a week or two. It sounds, and they're already talking about he's at physical therapy on Monday, or starting his physical therapy on Monday. That tells me that this is a pretty serious injury, and it might be closer to 2 to 3 months, possibly 8 to 12 races that Chase Elliott's going to miss. You're talking about, you want to see the guys on the track, these top performers. That's a long time to not have the series' most popular driver. I can think back to a few years ago when Dale Earnhardt Jr. was still in the series, and he had his concussion issues that kept him out of quite a few races. There were still obviously some big-time drivers then, but you could just tell that something was off. And I kind of felt like the same thing watching the Vegas race. It was like, okay, you get 2 Hendrick guys, really 3, because they finished 1, 2, 3. But, Byron absolutely dominated. But Larson also had a real long stretch where that caution doesn't come out late. He's probably going to actually win the race. You got to think a driver like Chase, I'm not going to say Vegas is his best track, but he should have been up there competing for a top 10. And then you talk about, for that team, the owner's points. You don't want to be going for a championship in NASCAR, at least, where you're not going for both the driver and the owner's car for that. We saw it kind of last year when Larson actually still was competing, and what Chase Elliott wasn't. Is he the one that wasn't competing last championship for the car number?
I can't recall.
Yeah, I think it was him. So it was a little bit weird there. So they go from having top 10 points plus potential stage points to 29th place finish. Like, that's huge for that 9 team. There's a lot of people kind of saying both sides, like, he's got a right to do what he wants to do. Drivers got to live their lives. And then there's other people who are like, what is he doing? He's, the face of, a team, all the sponsors, most popular driver. We already covered that. Where are you landing on how you're perceiving this event?
Yeah, I think it sucks as a fan of the sport wanting to see the world's best drivers. I understand he gets to make the decisions in his off time to do what he would like, and it's not like This is the first time he's ever gone snowboarding. From the sounds of it, he's very experienced, and it's an accident. We don't know exactly what's transpired to create the situation that ultimately played out, but me personally, having a career of my own, knowing kind of the risks that you're taking, plus I'm a Texan, I don't really like snow, so I stay clear of most of those events, but I really, whenever I go out and do things and think about being able to continue doing what I enjoy doing, and if it risks it, especially in the middle of the season, it's going to be very difficult for me to want to do that. But I see he's got all these doors open to him. He's able to make those decisions on his own. I'm sure he's got the ability to collect the insurance money on races that are missed, so it's not that impactful. But I know as a fan now looking at it, how does this impact him this season? And that's kind of what I want to talk about next, is thoughts on how this might play out, because there's still a path for him to make a championship push with the way that all of the regular season is kind of structured. He'll miss some playoff points opportunities, missing these races for the next 10, 12 races, whatever it ends up ultimately being. He'll miss the playoff points opportunity for that, but he wins, he's in. Then you get into the playoff actual 16, round of 16 down to 12, down to 8. He has the opportunity to make a push.
Jumping a little ahead, I got to share my thoughts on this too, because this is a big event, and I wanted to listen to some of the other pros out there who are doing what he's doing, and here's the deal. If you're upset at him, I think you kind of have every right to a certain extent. He doesn't owe you anything, but I can understand your frustration. I think the whole sport is frustrated, but life is full of risks. Chase Elliott's a guy who flies to himself to Hendrick Motorsports on the regular, a lot of times by himself. Should he not be doing that either? Should he not be doing the things that he's been doing for a long time? You kind of said you don't know how this event played out. It may not even have been his fault. Somebody else on the slopes with him may have made a mistake, and it led to him having an accident. He could be obviously in the car, on the track. He could get hurt. We've seen that many times from a lot of drivers, even last year, even his teammate Alex Bowman. But I think it's one of those things that it's a sad, I'm sad for the sport. I'm bummed for the sport because you're missing out on all these things. Your most popular driver is in a big hole now where, honestly, I know the path to the championship is there. We saw Kyle Busch do it a few years ago when he missed 12, 15 races, something like that. But I think it's going to be very, very difficult. I don't know if he's going to be able to pull it off like Kyle Busch. I think he's capable. But if it's his left leg, before we really knew what was going on, I was like, okay, well, there's going to be, if he gets back in a reasonable amount of time, there's going to be plenty of road courses, and that's where he has really gotten most of his damage done the last few years, is on the road courses. A little bit less now, especially with Allmendinger joining the series. That's going to be more difficult. We know Reddick has been just tearing it up.
Chastain's been in the mix.
Chastain's there. Briscoe's up there. I mean, there's a lot of really good. There's a reason for these drivers to be more focused on road courses, because we got like 6 on the schedule now, so it's impactful. But some people are like, oh, it's just his braking leg. He doesn't use it that much. Well, we're not typically seeing him win. Yes, he does get some wins on non-road courses, but that's where we would expect him to have his best opportunity to at least get a win to lock him in. And the thing that's going to be really difficult is if we have 16 winners this year, because we already have 3 unique so far. We're going to have obviously quite a bit more by 26 races. But if we're already pushing 16, 17 winners, he's going to be so low in points that win's not going to matter unless he gets multiple wins. Well, where's his best chance to get multiple wins? On road courses. Well, what do you really need to be good at on road courses? braking. And if that leg is giving him any problems, he might be fine to start the race, practice, qualify. He might be fine. But at the end of a Chicago street course where you're probably getting bounced around, Watkins Glen, Sonoma, some of these tracks, they're really, really technical, and he excels, in my opinion, from what I've seen. He's really good with being able to get on the brakes a little later, do a little bit more with his car. That could be a huge disadvantage for him. So for me, wishing him the best. I hope speedy recovery, obviously. But as far as what this season looks like for him, if he gets in the playoffs, I don't think he's going to make a deep run. And I hope I'm wrong, but I don't know, man.
Yeah, and it's nice to see it's not unprecedented with Kyle Busch's championship push in 2015 after coming back from a broken leg in an accident.
Didn't he break both?
I
think he broke both.
He certainly broke one at least. And I know he's reached out to Chase to kind of lend his opinion, and
which is awesome to hear.
Yeah, exactly. So I think a lot more people are becoming more Kyle Busch fans as you see kind of his shifting of.
Real quick, do you think he does that if he's still with Toyota?
Yeah, I would think so.
I would hope so. I would think so too. But
yeah.
I'm just kind of curious if that Chevy alliance plays any factor
exactly.
in that.
And Chevys were strong this weekend with Kyle getting that win in the Truck Series. I wasn't able to catch any of that race, but before we get to that, I kind of want to talk about Josh Berry and being able to come in and step in for Chase Elliott in this opportunity that's now his, it seems like, for the foreseeable future. A little bit disappointing. The first race out, got 29th, but kind of expected with him not having any experience in this next-gen car. What are your thoughts and takeaways from what you saw? Are you expecting a lot of him? Because I know Dale Jr. has been high on him from the beginning. Saw him early on, was able to get him a ride in his Dale Jr. Motorsports Xfinity Series, and he's been paying dividends for him. And so was it surprising to you to kind of have Josh Berry as the guy that they called up, and what are your expectations moving forward?
Well, I'm not that surprised. I was kind of trying to think of the list of potential Chevy drivers that could have filled in. And, they've used Justin Allgaier a few times. A few years ago when I think Jimmy missed, when he was still in the 48, he missed COVID. And Allgaier filled in there. And then I think he did someone else too. So he's had a few opportunities and fortunately just kind of had some bad luck. So the fact that they would kind of not choose Allgaier and go with Josh Berry, a guy who has said that he wants to race in Cup, who's got the backing of Dale Jr. Obviously, we know Junior Motorsports and Hendrick Motorsports, they got a strong alliance there. So no real surprise because you're not going to get a Ford guy or a Toyota guy to get in there. So as far as the Chevy drivers in the lower series, I'm not surprised they went with Berry. I'm a little surprised he didn't do a little bit better at Vegas because he's pretty strong at Vegas in the Xfinity Series. Already got a couple wins there. A little surprised, but the fact is, he didn't even have a week to prepare. I mean, he was just probably, I would imagine, just getting out of the car for, Xfinity qualifying. They're like, hey, man, can you also run over to the number 9 team and get in the seat and see if it fits? And I know that was something they had discussed in the pre-race show, is just they also had to find a driver that was similar to Chase Elliott's build because they didn't have a lot of time to make any changes, get a new seat and all this other stuff. I was hoping he would perform a little bit better. I thought he might, but he didn't qualify well, which is not surprising. And then when you have your teammates who were so dialed in, he didn't really have a good opportunity to stay on the lead lap. So he was always fighting, trying to be a lucky dog and whatnot. So that really hurt him. I would imagine he'll be in the race at Phoenix. I think Phoenix, he's more of a short track guy anyway. I think he'll have a much better run. And if he doesn't, then we may see them potentially give someone else a shot. But I would imagine that just the way Hendrick operates, I would imagine Barry's in this car until Chase gets back. And I think by the time he does get back, I think we'll see quite a bit of improvement from Barry. Will we see any top 10s? I don't know. Like finishes, but I wouldn't be surprised to see him up in the top 10 at times, because even last year when Ty Gibbs got to fill in, all those races for Kurt Busch, he didn't always get the finishes, but we saw him qualify well at times, even run up front, top 15, top 10 at times. Again, didn't quite get the finishes, but that still shows, okay, he may not have it all together just yet, but that's going to be really important for some other teams. I'm trying to think who would Josh Berry potentially drive for maybe next year if he does well in Xfinity, and obviously this little opportunity that he's getting on the 9 team. Who does he potentially go to? Because all the teams seem like they're locked in. Does he potentially go to a Ford, like the 4 car?
Be wild to see, because that would be a dramatic step and kind of crossing over the hand that fed him and Dale Jr. and Chevy and everybody that's given him.
Well, I don't think Dale Jr. would feel any sort of slight by that. Obviously, he'd want to see him in a Chevy because his alliance, but I think he just wants him to be in Cup. So from the Dale Jr. side, I don't think he would have any ill will. Some of these other Chevy guys might, though.
Yeah, and that all was impacted before we really even got much racing action underway this weekend. That Chase Elliott news broke, and that was the talk for the whole weekend, kind of putting those puzzle pieces together.
If you enjoyed that clip, then you'll love the full episode. Available on all major streaming podcast platforms. If video podcasts are more your thing, we put the full episodes up on our website, losinggripodcast.com.